Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to be doing a mini lesson on completing the square. Now, of course, completing the square is just one method of factoring. If given the option, the best way to do your completing the square is simply to take like a problem like x squared plus 2x plus 1, break it up, parentheses, x plus 1 equals 0, which is x plus 1 quantity squared equals 0. Square root both sides, x plus 1 equals 0, x equals -1. You have two factors of -1. That's nice and easy. But when you come to a problem like this one, x squared plus 2x minus 5, try breaking it up. X 5, 1, plus, minus, plus. Nothing works. You can't do it. So, of course, what can you move to? You could, of course, move to the quadratic formula. Any problem, any quadratic second power, that you cannot break up with straight factoring can be broken down by the quadratic formula. Problem is kind of long, may give you ugly numbers. So what we're going to need to do is we're going to need to find a different method. That different method is going to be completing the square. So let's write this down again, x squared plus 2x. But this time I'm going to move that 5 across, leaving a blank spot. Now, in this blank spot, I want to put some number that allows me to have exactly the same two pieces down here. In this case, what we're going to do is we're going to take this 2, and we're going to say, what is half of 2? Half of 2 is 1. All right? If I take 1 and I square it, I get 1 squared, which is 1. Now, I can break this down into x plus 1, x plus 1. But I can't just randomly add 1 to this side. I have to add 1 to the other side. You have to keep them balanced. Equals 6. Now, if I write this as a product, I can change it to exponential form. X plus 1 squared equals 6. Still square root both sides to solve. X plus 1 equals, now be careful, plus or minus root 6, because anytime I take a square root, it's plus or minus. All I have to do is subtract 1 from both sides, leaving me x equals -1 plus or minus root 6. Now, that is my answer. Not challenging. Again, moved the 5 across, found the middle number, took it in half, which is 1, squared what was the half, that's 1, put 1 in each place. Since I added 1 to this side, I must add 1 to this side. Simplify and solve. Now, this only works if this coefficient here is 1. Okay, if it's not 1, you're going to have to do something else to it. You'd have to divide everything by whatever that coefficient is. Now, just to show you that it actually does work, let's use, having proved that we can complete the square and solve the problem, let's use the quadratic formula to solve this problem again. Make sure we get the same answer. So A equals 1, B equals 2, C equals -5. With that, we're going to say opposite of B plus or minus the square root of B squared minus 4AC all over 2A. So I have -2 plus or minus the square root of 2 squared minus 4 times 1 times -5. All right, all over 2 times 1. Now, if I simplify this, I have 20. I have 4. So I have equals -2 plus or minus root 24 over 2. Now, once I have this worked out, I can reduce this and say that's 2 root 6. So I have -2 plus or minus 2 root 6 all over 2. Well, by division, I come up with -1 plus or minus root 6. There we go. That does indeed match the answer that we got when we completed the square. So, that does work whether you use quadratic formula or completing the square. But we're going to need completing the square when we do our study of conics. Now, let's do another example for completing the square. X squared minus 4x minus 7 equals 0. First things first, the process means we move this to the other side. X squared minus 4x plus blank equals 7. Now, I'm going to take this middle number here, divide it by 2. Comes up with 2. Then I square it, that makes 4. But if I add 4 to one side, I must add 4 to the other. So I come up with x squared minus 4x plus 4 equals 11. At this point, I can break it up. X minus 2 equals 11. X minus 2, the quantity squared, equals 11. Square root both sides. X minus 2 equals plus or minus root 11. X equals, well, let's add 2 to both sides. 2 plus or minus root 11. That should be our answer there. The only other thing, the last type of example that we need to do is when the leading coefficient is not 1. In this case, I have a 4 for my leading coefficient. Now, what I'm going to need to do is I'm going to need to divide everything, both sides, by whatever the leading coefficient is. In our case, it's a 4. Now, that's going to give us x squared minus 4x plus 23/4 equals 0. Now, don't get scared, it's just a fraction. So I'm going to say x squared minus 4x plus blank equals, then subtract 23/4 from both sides. (23/4) from both sides. Cut this in half, that's 2, square it, that's 4. Add 4 to both sides. Now, in this case, I'm going to need to find some common denominators. So I have x minus 2, parenthesis, x minus 2, parenthesis, equals, and 4, of course, 4 over 1, would turn into 16 over 4. Be 39/4. 39/4. X minus 2, the quantity squared, equals 39/4. Square root both sides. X minus 2 equals square root of 39 over 2, plus or minus, of course, and add 2 to both sides to finish. So there's your answer. Speaking of finishing, you need some homework. That homework is the following. There you go. Let that blow your mind. So, your homework are the following 3 problems. So, make sure you have those done in class.